Hi, it's your pal Jeremy. I've got a question for you. Why are there no truly good video game movies? It's a question we ask ourselves every time another Resident Evil sequel comes out in theaters. Every time a huge IP like Halo or Mortal Kombat goes direct to video. Every time we see a movie like John Wick or The Raid that shows us how it woulda, coulda, shoulda been done. What gives? Why are there so few film adaptations of video games being made? And in the off chance that they are, why do they always seem to range from, I don't know, forgettable and bad to so bad that they're actually kind of funny? First off, I suppose we need to qualify what a video game movie even is. I'm sure that the first that spring to mind are probably camp classic shit heaps like Super Mario Bros. And Street Fighter, or international blockbusters that somehow recoup their budgets in China, which we'll get to later, like Assassin's Creed or Warcraft. But what about movies on the periphery of gaming like Tron, The Last Starfighter, Scott Pilgrim, Ready Player One, 2.5-hour Loot Crate commercial everyone seems to like for reasons that genuinely baffle me. There are a handful of really great movies kind of about video games, just not, like based on video games, which is maybe a sign of hope for things to come, but it still doesn't really answer the question. Why in the unholy do studios seem incapable of adapting The Witcher, Mass Effect, Bioshock, Elder Scrolls, Metal Gear, maybe even less obvious ones with great stories like Spec Ops The Line or Alan Wake or Saints Row? The answer may surprise you. It's money, isn't it, Holmes? I mean, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other pretty big reasons for it as well, like the experiential, active, and social elements of modern gaming being directly at odds with the passive experience of watching a film. Not to mention the fact that the stories told in some of the more critically acclaimed titles like Last of Us would benefit very little actually from stripping the gameplay from the experience and slapping the cutscenes on the movie screen. When Game of the Year editions hit Steam and Amazon for $20 within months of release, there's very little incentive to pay twice that to see Chris Evans and Jennifer Lawrence spend 2 hours doing a Cliff Notes version of the story you already just spent 40 hours experiencing.
Well, that settles it then. We really are the Last of Us. They're all clicky boys now.
Are the monsters the clicky boys, or are we?
Am I right? It's like when they make a movie based on a TV show, it's usually like an okay novelty, but not really all that great in the long run. It's not really all that much like a book adaptation either, because in playing the game, you've already experienced the audio-visual element of the story, and oftentimes with a perfectly competent motion and voice actor cast. So what's a studio supposed to do to incentivize the target audience? Well, one answer is to change the target, which is not necessarily wrong, and there are actually 3 very good reasons why. 1, without cooperation with the publishers and developers, the studio is largely incapable of telling the stories as accurately as hardcore fans would demand. 2, the pubs and devs are usually uncooperative because they think they're going to be Marvel and make their own movies based on their IP, and are often exposed as being a hell of a lot better at game design than they are at storytelling elements once you strip all the game theory from the title. Most of the major studios are in a financial bind that requires them to go with bankable talent in order to obtain financing in the hundreds of millions of dollars necessary to make a proper action, sci-fi, fantasy type picture. So most of these A-list directors and actors that they're required to tap by their financiers are not of a generation that grew up with a video game controller in their hands. Those that were are usually hamstrung with lower budgets in the tens of millions or less due to their relative inexperience. So basically you end up with a crew that's never engaged with the subject matter, struggling to suppress their embarrassment or whatever for a paycheck or to impress their teenage nephew or something. That's a trailer for the Fortnite movie I directed. Bet you think your old Uncle Thurgood Hunter Wellesley III is pretty cool now, huh? Sport.
Is this like a nostalgia thing? I don't know who's playing Fortnite anymore.
I turned down the Nick Cage comeback movie.
I mean, we're playing Apex Legends now.
It's basically the same story as almost anyone making a comic book movie in the 80s or 90s. Over time, this may change, but it's unlikely that that's going to happen soon. Studios know that they cannot win at the game of pandering to the most entitled fandom in human history, and if you're about to at me about this right now, you're exactly what I'm talking about. Thankfully, there is a silver lining in TV and streaming platforms. Netflix's Castlevania series, which our pal Adi Shankar developed, is a great example, and here's why it worked. It is well known that Netflix uses algorithms to inform their programming of their lion's share of their content. Their algorithm presumably tells them that the target audience enjoys video games, anime, horror, and nostalgia. Castlevania is a nostalgic IP with a relatively static story that lends itself well to an anime style, and in fact has always incorporated that style into their character design, and comes from a studio, Konami, that is over the barrel enough to give actual creative control to the people that know what they're doing. All in all, it's an IP that would be very easy for some cynical Hollywood dum-dum to f up, but also one with a huge and loyal fan base with a very open mind for occasionally questionable dialogue.
What What is a man?
I can think of maybe a dozen or more similar IPs off the top of my head that would be amazing in an episodic format like this. Metal Gear, also anime style, Mass Effect and or Dragon Age, Life is Strange is a CW show, of course, The Witcher, Metro, Saints Row, Assassin's Creed, really, Resident Evil, maybe less like this. And more like this. Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Warcraft, and or League of Legends as premium all-age 3D animated series, Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead as a premiere HBO series, Pikmin, Crash Bandicoot, Fortnite or Mega Man as kids shows, anything by Quantic Dream, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Fahrenheit, whatever, as an anthology or shared universe series, the list goes on. So while the studios keep pumping out movies that no one asked for, like Rampage, Fruit Ninja, and Tetris, I swear to God these are all real, maybe it'll be up to people like us, maybe you watching at home, to find another way to bring these stories to life. Given time, perhaps the question will no longer be, why are there no good video game movies? But rather, why are there so goddamn many video game movies coming out every year? So what do you think? Are there any video game movies that you genuinely did like? Did you buy Tomb Raider on 4K Blu-ray? Can you watch the original Super Mario Bros. Movie all the way through without checking your phone 57 times? Are you looking forward to the weird Sonic the Hedgehog movie coming out later this year? Maybe you've got a good feeling about that Howard the Duck looking Detective Pikachu movie. What about the years late Five Nights at Freddy and Temple Run movies? Are you looking forward to 1,000 Netflix anime series based on every game that ever existed because it worked once and there's nothing Hollywood executives love more than trying to replicate something that worked once without appreciating the context of why it worked in the first place? Did you think Bandersnatch was a good movie, or was it like a FMV video? Did you like Silent Hill? I actually liked that one. I shouldn't have mentioned that, it doesn't conform to my narrative. Anyways, let us know in the comments below. I'm your pal Jeremy, see you in hell. And don't forget to keep it locked to IGN.